Stories of gold in the Rocky Mountains date back to the 1530s. The Spanish, looking to continue their exploits in the Americas, sent an expedition of 400 north from Mexico in search of the fabled 7 cities of Cibola. They found nothing. After the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, President Jefferson sent Lieutenant Zebulon Pike west to explore the new territory. Pike's Peak became the most important landmark in the rush to gold country. Captain John Fremont led 5 expeditions into the Western Territories from 1844 to 1853. Occasionally, some of his men stopped to pan the creeks and streams in the Rockies, finding small amounts of gold. The California Gold Rush brought the 49ers through the mountains. They, too, occasionally found gold along the South Platte and Arkansas rivers. One of these men was John Beck, a veteran of the Dahlonega gold camps in North Georgia. Striking out in California, Beck convinced a fellow miner and friend, William Green Russell, to come west. In the spring of 1858, Russell and a party of more than 100 men and 14 wagons began the trip. Most were Georgia miners and Cherokee Indians. They followed the Santa Fe Trail, stopping at Bent's Fort along the Arkansas River for supplies. Eventually, the party settled at the foot of the Rocky Mountains along a creek, its banks covered in choked cherries. Russell added the name Cherry Creek to his map. The men panned the stream to the South Platte River without results. Beck and most of his men quit, but Russell and a few determined men continued. 8 miles upstream, they hit pay dirt, finding small amounts of gold. When a miner returned east for the winter with a bag of gold dust to show, rumors started flying. The news spread up and down the Missouri River and across the country by wire. The St. Louis Telegraph ran the headline, "The New El Dorado, the Pike Mines, first arrival of gold dust at Kansas City."
This rush was on that was just unbelievable. They got the fever, and it spread like wildfire, and the next thing you know, bankers and lawyers and bakers and mayors and everybody was packing their wagons. They were headed west.
Obsessed men will act strangely. One man pushed a wheelbarrow the entire route. Along the banks of Cherry Creek, Russell and his party started building a permanent settlement. Russell named the camp Auraria, from the Latin word for gold, and the name of his hometown in Georgia. In a short time, the city of Denver is established on the opposite side of Cherry Creek. Until now, the gold discovered in the Rockies was more rumor than reality. That changed when John Gregory found gold on Clear Creek in the foothills west of Auraria. In a few days, the party pulled more than $900 from their pans. A second wave of prospectors headed west, including Lewis Dyer in 1860. John followed the next year.
I had made up my mind to see Pike's Peak. That was, if I could see it all. On the 9th of May, 1861, I left Lenora on a splendid riding animal. As I left Minnesota, I could but reflect on the 6 years passed in that new country. I had been the first preacher in many places. Then, looking at my financial situation, I could see no way out. But I had given all my property up and had one consolation, and that was that I had intended to wrong no one and cared less for what was gone than that I was unable to pay at once all claims against me. I held myself committed to pay every cent as soon as I could make it. I rode that day 47 miles.
John spent his first night on the trail at Newton, Iowa, and boarded with a man that he'd met at a camp meeting. He fed and cared for his horse, then went inside to eat dinner.
The stable keeper had a hen that was sitting on a nest of eggs and was afraid the horse might disturb the hen. So he moved that horse and moved it into an area where there was corn, and the horse ate it all.
And the horse was so ill after this, he had to sell it. The landlord had saved 10 cents. Cost John Dyer really $150.
I led her a few miles and sold her for a gun, an old watch, and $15, a very little more than the bridle and saddle were worth.
Now on foot, John made his way west to Omaha, Nebraska, starting point for one of the 3 main trailheads across the Great Plains. The preacher secured passage with an 18-wagon train bound for Pike's Peak.
One of the men agreed to board me across for $15 and haul my carpet sack and gun. I was to walk. We set out for 600 miles, as it was called.
Travel over the great American desert was not easy, the trail rugged and dusty. They followed the North Platte River west through Nebraska, averaging 15 to 20 miles per day. 3 days from Fort Sedgwick, the train stopped for the night at a new cedar log home on the prairie. It being Sunday, John asked for the privilege of preaching. After a rousing sermon to a group of 40, he was embarrassed to find out that the house was actually a brothel. The last night on the plains, a thief stole most of the preacher's remaining few dollars. John decided to let it go.
I was consoled in the fact that I was no worse off than I would have been if it had been $5,000. We stopped 2 miles up Cherry Creek, above Denver. I took what I had in my carpet sack and walked into town and met my second son, Elias.